the vagina but numbs the clitoris. So the clitoris is so sensitive that by using a machine on it, yes, it will quickly then adapt to that level of intense stimulation. And then trying to use a tongue or a lowly finger will just be like, that's not really working. So I actually don't recommend them for the clitoris.
Yeah, you better. Cause you want this, I want this. Everybody in this world should have it. Stop illusions, it's in your hands. Show yourself, reveal it to them. Yeah, you better. Take the time to recognize it. You won't leave me even if you tried it. You're the artist, I'm the mess, and happily be found the new in your hands.
Kim Anami is a board-certified sexologist, holistic sex and relationship coach, writer, and speaker. Her work is a spiritual synthesis of over 3 decades of Tantra, Taoism, transpersonal psychology, philosophy, and a host of quantum growth accelerating practices she uses to propel clients into higher stratospheres of connection, intimacy, and energy. She divides her time between Bali and Los Angeles, a host of beaches in between, where she not only lives and surfs, but lifts with her vagina. Follow her world-traveling, weightlifting media sensation and adventures on Instagram with the hashtag Things I Lift with My Vagina. View her sex education videos on YouTube and listen to her top-rated Orgasmic Enlightenment podcast. Please find her online, All Things Intimacy, programs at www.kimanami.com. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlimited with Elisabeth Carson, where nothing is off limits. Today, we have a very special guest. I have been waiting for this interview literally for months. It's almost probably been a year, I swear. I'm like, please get her. Thank you so much, Kim Anami, for coming on my show. I appreciate you. And the work that you're doing is so incredible. Incredible. Can you tell people a little bit, just a short little bit about you and what you do?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad to be here. And I love the concept of your show where nothing is off limits. These are the kinds of conversations I love to be having. So I am a holistic sexologist, a sex and relationship therapist, and a vaginal weightlifter, a master of vaginal kung fu. So my aim in my work is really to show people what's possible in their sex lives. And I look at sex and intimacy as a way to self-realize, to find degrees of spiritual enlightenment, obviously to have euphoric experiences in sex, but there's so much more than that. And that's what I'm most passionate about showing people, is that most people have a very limited view of what their sex life can do for them. For often it's, oh, it's a way to put me to sleep, or it's stress relief. And I'm saying, actually, it's a combination of psychedelics, shadow work, breath work, nervous system resetting, and spiritual alchemy all in one. And that's really the big secret. That's why so much of sex is censored. Sex is censored because we have all of these taboos that are manufactured to really prevent people from tapping into this power that's literally at our fingertips.
Yes, I love all of that. Can you talk about the power of orgasm, like beyond sex, as basically like an energy amplifier? That's what, like, energetic. I know that there's so much sexual energy holds probably the most, right, in the universe.
Right. If we look at our sexual energy as life force energy, this is the energy that creates new life. And we all have this channel running through us. And so when we're sexual, even when we're sexual with ourselves, we access this power. When we're sexual with another person, we amplify that tenfold, right? So this is why I say people can still be practicing solo when they're learning how to move and harvest and cultivate this energy. You just increase that exponentially when you have a willing partner on that journey. So when we're in sexual communion with ourselves or with a partner, and we're tapping into and building up that energy, we are more and more getting close to and accessing this portal into other dimensions where we're tapping into this avenue for the life force to come through us, right? That's what it does through every sexual encounter. And so the more conscious we are of that, and we can use techniques, and this is what ancient practices and Taoism and Tantra were all about, is how do we consciously use this energy, learn how to move it and direct it in our bodies, and then channel it into our lives.
Yes, I love this so much. You know what I really want to focus on? I want to focus on prosperity and sexual energy, because I feel like if you're blocked sexually, you're not going to receive the abundance that really is divinely yours because you have that blockage. I feel like it just runs very similar along each other. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, actually. And even in the chakra system, sexuality, creativity, and money are all second chakra issues. And so, what I've seen over the years of working with people is that when a single or a couple would come to me back in the day when I would do private coaching, and they were having relationship issues, they were stuck, they were fighting, they were blocked, they would be having money issues. There was always this corresponding flow. And then when we would unlock the issues in the relationship, and this is where it got to be so clear for me, is that I was working with one couple in particular. And every time we would unlock something in the relationship, they would get some kind of windfall, of job offer, some sort of financial opportunity, money literally falling into their laps. And I'd say, well, that's because your laps are what attracted it. And it was this incredible correlation that I've since seen repeated ad infinitum with the people I've worked with. And so when we're and our expression in the world, right? How we express and we self-realize, how we give our gifts into the world, that's connected to our sexual energy. Our sexual blueprint, our genetic blueprint contains the essence, right, of exactly who we are. And the more that we become, and this is something else I've seen, sexually self-realized, we own our sexual energy, we inhabit it, we're really expressed in that domain, we become far more expressed in our outer lives. People start making decisions that are much more in alignment with the truth of who they are, with their real selves. And for example, let's say somebody was working in more of a 9 to 5, pay the bills kind of job. It's not really an expression of their dharma or their real gifts that they have to give in the world. They become more sexually self-realized and in tune, and they just have this automatic urge. They'll quit their jobs out of the blue and start gravitating towards something that is more in alignment with who they are. And this is the whole thing that I say, like, who you are in bed is who you are in life. And as you become more of your true self and expressing your true nature in bed, that starts to show up everywhere in your friend choices, in the hobbies that you have, in your work, all of these ways in which you suddenly become much more in alignment with who you are. And that reflects in all of your decisions and your actions. And the wonderful thing is, it's not even something you're trying to do. You're not thinking, I'm going to make better choices that reflect who I am. You just start doing it. And you're propelled by this inner momentum of this life force energy that's finally getting a chance to filter and come through you unbridled.
Yes. Why do you think that society has separated sensuality with success so much? Sex is almost taboo.
So when you say separated sensuality from success, how do you mean that exactly?
So I really feel like, okay, when I receive abundance or I get, I used to be a real estate agent. I closed a deal and I got like a $30,000 commission, and it almost felt the same as an orgasm, like the energy of that. Like it's open, it's powerful, it's light, it's like lit, it's just who. So I feel like if there was more education, in society about sex and sexual energy, that people can align sensuality with success. And then, just like you said, you embody more of who you are, and then just boom, you become what you're supposed to be. But I feel like society has kind of separated the two and almost put a little bit of shame into sexual energy and sex in general, especially for women, especially?
Well, I think sex has become this massive tool of suppression, right? All of the taboo and the shame, which is all manufactured, right? We don't naturally come into the world with these ideas. They're very quickly at the earliest stages put upon people. And so when a culture at large or an individual is suppressed sexually, their entire life is suppressed, right? So their ability even to make money, their ability to be themselves in the world, to have a healthy relationship with themselves or another person, all of that stuff is mutated. And truly, that's the reality for most people in the world, because in every country, everywhere you go, to varying degrees, there's still always a huge amount, a huge obscuring myths, misinformation, taboo, censorship around all things sexual. And yet the irony of that is that the paradox is that sex is everywhere. It's used to sell everything from sports cars to sports drinks. And yet there's all these taboos about really having it and enjoying it. And I think that's actually part of a deliberate mechanism to confuse people, right? Well, but sex is everywhere. It sells my toothpaste, but yet there's still all of these really strong barriers around being a healthy, expressed person sexually. So I think like for every person, then the journey is to do some kind of introspection, examination. What are the beliefs that I've taken on? What is the reality? What do I actually want? And most people don't know what they don't know. We're presented with very limited ideas of what sex is. If you look at movies or television shows, sex is a 30-second encounter that is mostly resulting in a man having an orgasm and the woman, maybe not, who knows, who cares? Like, it's just the things we take in sexually are so distorted. So most people have such a badly wired idea of what sex can even be. And so a huge role that I see myself as playing is just showing people what's possible, right? Like I say, the Anami guarantee is that all women are multi-orgasmic. They can have G-spot orgasms, cervical orgasms, ejaculatory orgasms. They have high libidos, are ravenous sexually. They can lubricate profusely at any age and stage, and they can all shoot ping pong balls with their vagina. I guarantee it. All men can learn to last for an hour, 3 hours sexually. They too can be multi-orgasmic. They can learn to separate orgasm from ejaculation. Every man can. So this isn't just like, oh, some people can, some people can't. Some people are just lucky or gifted and some aren't. No, everyone can. If they haven't discovered this yet, it's just because they've been part of this brainwashing and taboo creation that really stops people from having that relationship with themselves and another person to the profound degree that would show them all these benefits in their lives.
Yes. Okay. You brought up my favorite thing to talk about, which is the cervical orgasm. Can you talk about all the orgasms that women can have, number one? And then can you talk about the cervical orgasm? I want to go there.
So there's so many orgasms that women can have. The queen of them all is the cervical orgasm. And in Taoist reflexology, the cervix is considered the heart point. And so a woman really needs to be in tune with her heart, open heart energy. And then the cervix, that energy, it's also connected to the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve goes all the way up through the body, through the heart, up to the crown chakra. And this is why women often use very spiritual language to describe having a cervical orgasm. Like, I saw God, I felt it when I was crying tears of euphoria and release, right? These really deep, powerful, metamorphosis type experiences. And crown chakra, spiritual opening, connecting at large to the world in this very deep, heavenly way. And then in terms of other orgasms, clitoral, G-spot, blended, full body, energy orgasm, anal orgasm, nipplegasm. You could have elbowgasms. Like after you open up these neural pathways, you can get to a place where you can tune into those energies. And you can, like, I can have an orgasm just from hearing my partner's voice or just from thinking about him. Or we can be talking on the phone and, no touch, just through connecting energetically. And, in your realm, I'm sure, the sense of the hidden powers that we all have as humans that most of us don't even realize we have, like telepathic or energetic connecting powers that really get amplified through deep sexual relationship, right? Like Einstein's what is it, spooky action at a distance, the quantum entanglement theory that a particle here, if it has a relationship with a particle light years away, if something happens in this particle, the other particle will feel it because they have this connection that transcends time and space.
Right. That brings me into intertwinement of sexual energy. So when a woman lays with, let's say she lays with 5 men and a man lays with 10 women, that energy, does it always stick? Because I've heard different things about sexual energy. I've heard that when a woman sleeps with a man, the woman takes on all of his partners, all the trauma, all of that, and then same with a man. But then I've heard some conflicting things about intertwinement of sexual energy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've heard similar things that can sound quite ominous and foreboding. I mean, I do believe that at its best, in an intimate relationship, you treat it as an alchemical cauldron where you toss all of your stuff. It could be ancestral, current, karmic. You can toss it into the fire, and together you can alchemize it. You can transform it. You know, we have many stories of people doing this with simple, even physical things like cysts or growths or blockages in their bodies, to emotional things like my throat feels blocked. Let's do a lot of deep throating tonight and we can really open that up. So using our sex acts as conscious alchemizers. And then you could do that at a broader level with like past things, with traumatic things, energetically speaking. Now, this idea that you take on all of the things of, I think to a degree you do, but I also believe that we only take on what we allow ourselves to take on. Right? Like nothing can harm us unless we let it on some level. And so if someone's very unconscious and a very leaky vessel, then probably they do take on a lot more. If somebody is more conscious, they're more boundaried, they're more aware of their energies and how they play into another person, then I think they could be a lot more judicious with that. But a lot of people, you know, through indiscriminate, let's say, drug use, they puncture their aura with so many holes that they become open to entry from, you know, other dimensions, from people, from energies. And so if they're very unaware of these kinds of dynamics, then yes, I think they can become loaded with baggage. But for people who are much more conscious of these things, I think less so. They just have a better sense of what their energy is doing overall. And look, they would probably then tune in, okay, this person is not an ideal partner. Is this really in my best interest to be having a lot of casual encounters? And there's no moral judgment on that. It's more about like, what's the best use of my energy, right? If we're looking at the alchemy that's possible, then, you know, are casual encounters really serving me, or is a deep, intimate mind, body, soul connection where we use our relationship as a vessel for growth a better use of that energy?
Mhm, mhm. So I know that after for a woman after an orgasm, the woman usually feels very energized and super creative and just, bubbly like woo. And guys, it's almost opposite. So can you talk a little bit about energetic orgasms and what happens to us after we orgasm, women and men?
Women don't tend to lose much energy through orgasm. They can gain more by doing certain breathing and energy recirculation practices. And yes, absolutely true to the cliche, men tend to get depleted when they have a regular orgasm. And so the whole conversation about semen retention, no fap, and the solution to me, which is the best of all possible worlds, which is learning how to orgasm without ejaculation. So the idea is that, the fluid that men emit with every ejaculation, the body is taking the most high grade, high high quality material from every part of the system to generate this life-giving fluid, right? And most men just eject that out willy-nilly, haha, and they don't think about that. And so that the cost of that is that exhaustion, right? The body is so depleted from making and then getting rid of all of that energy that it's just blown out. The man will literally pass out. And so when men learn to recirculate more of that energy within themselves and then ultimately learn to orgasm with that ejaculation, they can have sex. Like my barometric question for anybody, but especially men, is do you want to run a marathon after sex? And if you do, then you're doing it right. And if you don't, then you're doing it in a way that's depleting your energy. And we actually had an ultra marathoner come to my work and he heard me say that phrase. He's like, well, yeah, I would like to run a marathon after sex and maybe before too. Literally, right? So, so he was intrigued to try these practices out. Okay, is this going to help my performance? And they did. He started using these practices and he ran the best race time of his life
Wow.
because he was dumping out all of this energy uselessly, right? As a waste. He was learning to reconvert it in himself and use it for himself.
Yes, yes. And you know what? I've studied a little bit on semen retention, but isn't it a little bit difficult for men to do that and to learn that practice? Is it hard?
I mean, like anything, it takes effort and it takes some, and I don't, it's honestly not that hard to learn. It's more about the commitment. It's trying to sell a guy, hey, your orgasm will be even better. And they can't compute. What do you mean I'm not going to have an orgasm? No, you're going to have an orgasm. You just won't ejaculate. It's like the hardest thing ever to separate that idea. But it's true. And we have podcasts with interviews of guys who've done it to prove it, right? This is real. And these guys will all tell you that it's way better. It's 100 times better than the meager thing that you think of as your orgasm now is 1/100th of what's available to you with your pleasure, not only, but also then with your creative, your athletic abilities, your mental abilities, all of those things are increased by holding on to this energy and recirculating it. So no, yes, it takes some discipline, but honestly, the hardest sell for men is just the belief that
Right.
it's possible and it would be worth it.
I was listening to this other podcast, and he was talking about how he experimented with this, and he had an hour-long orgasm, and he said that was too much. He was like, "That is too much." I thought it would be great, but it was not. It was so funny. Yeah, I thought that
I
was.
would I would challenge that this person or anyone needs to learn to vibrate at a higher level of pleasure, right? Like how much good can you take? How much abundance can you receive in your life? And this is actually fabulous training for that. Imagine that you train yourself to be able to live and accept that much pleasure, 2 hours of an orgasm, 3 hours of an orgasm. People can have orgasm that lasts for days. It doesn't have to stop. We're conditioned to think you have this build, you get to a mountaintop, you have contractions, and then this total depletion. Okay, we're all dead, we'll go do something else. But in the work that I teach, you build up to that mountain and you never really have to drop off. You can live there in a place of euphoria and a high and pleasure, right? And so that would be my challenge to someone like that is, well, how much good can you take? Right? Why does it need to stop? And then you have to adapt your system to operating at such a high level of pleasure in your life. And it's not like you're shaking like, 24 hours straight, right? At the cusp of orgasm, but it's living in that level of huge pleasure bubble. That becomes your whole life. And that's the thing is like people can't even conceive like, really? Yes, really, truly.
I'm like getting chills. I'm like, can you teach me how to have some days? Because I mean, that would be
Yeah,
crazy. So I was also hearing this story about a woman, and she was at an opera or something. Did you hear about this? And the
I
woman,
don't know.
there was some musical notes, and she went into full body orgasm and couldn't stop. And she was making noises. It was a whole thing. It went viral.
Wow.
Yes,
Send me this. I want to see this.
I will. What is that? Is that just frequency? I mean, it must be just some sort of frequency that hit her body that I don't know. How did that even happen? That's so incredible to
Well, I
me.
think you know what I was saying earlier, that when if you've opened up these neural pathways in yourself, and I think too that kind of high level achievement also has its own frequency of bliss, right? If she's a master of that and that's her creative pinnacle, there's a frequency to that. And I'd say it's similar to the sensual bliss, right? Of orgasm, the openness, the enlightenment of tapping into these new parts of ourselves. And so I think it's just similar pathways, and you open into one and it bleeds into another.
Mhm. That makes so much sense. So much sense. So,
I've had orgasms even like I have them at the gym on certain exercises like Bulgarian squats, split squats, hack squats, really intense exercises that really call upon every cell of you to keep going, right? You're like, oh God, can I take another moment of this? And you don't, oh yeah, you got 4 more reps to go, girl. You do have to take it. And you go and I've had full on like I have a cervical orgasm, hack squat gasm in the moment because I've busted through like this barrier in myself, right? Of can I go another level? Can I go another level? And that's what I mean about this person thinking, oh, they can't take it. It's like, bitch, you can take it. You better take it, or not, don't if you don't want to. I don't care. But for those that I'm like, I did a podcast yesterday and I said, look, for mere mortals will turn back when they get to that threshold, to that edge, to that abyss, but the gods among us will jump over it.
I want to jump over it. You know what's crazy to say that about the gym? Whenever I do certain exercises, I'm like, I'm like really in the mood right now. And it's certain exercises that put me there. Why is that? Is it because you're
Right?
activating like your solar plex? I mean, like why is that?
I mean, I think some of it could be physical, but for me, it's that energy. Okay, for me, that whole journey to cervical orgasms and vaginal orgasm, like G-spot to a degree, but especially cervical, it's more of a spiritual journey where, like I said, you get to these places in yourself, or you get to a cliff, right? And to get to the other side, you have to jump over into an abyss. And a lot of people get there, and even if it's in a split second of an instinctual pull back, they're scared. There's like this chasm that opens up and they pull back. Okay, they're not going to make it, right? But for those of us who then jump over, that's where we enter into this new dimension, spiritually, energetically, sexually, with pleasure. And the same thing to me happens. And that's why I love weight training, because you can always keep raising that bar, literally, right? Like with weight plates and a bar, you can increase that weight even by a pound or a kilo in a session, right? And you're going a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. And it's that same practice that is involved in these deeper orgasms, right? Where it's like a kind of an endurance thing, but bliss endurance. You're building your endurance for bliss. Again, how much pleasure can you take? And weight training to me is a great regimen to also anything that you do in your life. For me, it's also surfing, right? It's learning to become a better surfer and then taking on bigger and bigger waves, right? Always upping the ante.
Yeah.
And it's that whole quality, I think, that trains us to become warriors, spiritual warriors, to become always growing and evolving to the next level. My name, Anami, is a chosen name, and Anami is a Sanskrit word, and it means there's always another level to go. We never hit a static state of enlightenment or growth. There's always another level, no matter who you are, where you are at in your world. And so I live by that concept, right? It's like, great, how do I get to the next level? And some of us do. And I think those are the people that have these kinds of experiences because we want to keep going. And other people may be content with more of a status quo, like things how they are. They never really need to change. It's not my path, but might be somebody else's.
Huh? Yes, I'm on your path, girl. I'm on your path. Okay. Can you give people maybe some tips on if someone wants to really experience, like a woman wants to experience a cervical orgasm, or a man wants to experience a longer orgasm? How could they, is there a way to practice with self-pleasure to make that happen?
Definitely. I mean, self-pleasure is really know thyself, right? It's getting to know For a woman, I'd say every nook and cranny of your vagina, spending time inside the vagina, doing a lot of, we have videos on my YouTube channel about yoni massage, right? That people can do and lingam massage. They can do on themselves, they can do on their partners. And that's a beautiful way to heal, awaken, activate the genitals. So, the kind of trauma that we take in, or the programming and the beliefs that get stored in these areas, in the reproductive organs. And so going in with conscious, loving, deliberate touch, again, self-administered or by your partner, is a beautiful way to reconnect and start to own these parts of ourselves: the uterus, ovaries, the vagina, for men, their cocks. And then for men, as well, who've been circumcised, there's a massive additional layer of trauma that goes on top of that, their genitalia. And so the same thing, like lingam massage for them, self-pleasuring, learning how to build their stamina. I say that stamina is the number one most important sexual skill for men, and every man ought to be able to at least 1 hour minimum, they need to have full control before they would orgasm. And ideally, they just have full control even at 3 hours. But I'd say absolute minimum 1 hour of intercourse, where it doesn't matter what position she's in, what noise she's made, what look is in her eye, you hold the course and you will not falter.
It. You know what I've heard from a lot of women? I hear that, anything past 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they get sore, it gets boring. It's like, oh, I wish they would just hurry up and be done. I've heard that so many times, Kim. It's like, why do you think that is? Is it shame in women? I mean, I've heard a lot of women get sore like very quickly. I mean,
I think the origin of that is being numb in the vagina. Is that when a vagina is numb and can't really feel anything, they don't, for one, they can take it or leave it when it comes to sex. They default to the clitoris because it's an easier, quick hit. It's like eating a chocolate bar. You get this huge rush of sugar. You're like, oh, that was great. But then usually there's a blood sugar decline and a crash after that. And it's ultimately doing damage to your system, right? Rather than, chocolate bar isn't building nutrients and muscle, but it's just creating toxic load, neurotoxin. So the same thing I say with my equivalent, what I call junk food sex or gourmet sex. And clitoral quick hit orgasms to me are more in the realm of junk food sex. They're not really building you up and getting you to these deeper levels. But if most women are vaginally numb, they have sex, they have stimulation there, they're like, that's not, let's just give me a clitoral orgasm. This is kind of boring. I get it. If you don't feel anything there, why would you? And if someone's getting sore, they're probably not staying wet because they're not feeling anything. If they were feeling pleasure, they would be wet and they would be enjoying it. And so two major tools to address that. Number one, we already mentioned yoni massage, amazing way to reconnect, resensitize. And then, of course, the jade yoni egg. So my whole weightlifting practice is about toning the vagina, all the muscles within the pelvic floor, pelvic bowl, reconnecting, increasing pleasure, orgasm potential, eliminating urinary incontinence and pelvic organ prolapse. Like, it's the wonder tool for women. Every woman ought to have a jade egg practice. But the big overarching benefit is that it's resensitizing the vagina. Women are starting to develop that agility and strength and sensitivity, so then they actually feel something in their vagina, and then they feel pleasure, and then they have orgasms, and then they want to have sex for that much longer because now they can feel something. But I think it's just become so normalized to be numb there that women just don't know any different. And they're like, what's the big deal about sex? Like, and I understand from that perspective, it makes sense.
what causes a woman to be numb down there? Is it trauma, sexual trauma?
I think it's a combination of things, definitely sexual trauma, but simply physically speaking, not exercising it, right? I often give this analogy, like imagine that we were part of a tribe where you grew up, and in the tribe, you're told that your right arm is your functional arm. You do everything with your right arm, and your left arm just kind of hangs, like it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. You never use it. it's limp, it's atrophied because it never gets used. And then this new tribe comes to town. They're nomadic, they're wandering through, and they're using both of their arms. And everyone's like, oh my God, what is this? What's going on? We can do that? Like you can actually use that arm? And they're like, yeah, look, just they're doing aerobics and weightlifting, and then you go to try to move your arm and it doesn't move. Like think about people who've been paralyzed and they're trying to rehabilitate and they're like taking their baby toe. You're trying to wiggle their baby toe, right? So you try to wiggle a little bit of your finger, and you have to do that with the whole arm to bring it back to life because for years you were told, don't go there. The good stuff's in the clitoris. Don't bother with the vagina. No big deal. Don't exercise it, or worse, do Kegels, which are completely useless. You need to actually have feedback and resistance with weight training. You can't just wave your arms around in the air and think you're building muscle. And then any of the internalized beliefs. So let's say you internalize the Madonna whore idea, right? And so that's the belief, or the idea that women don't really enjoy sex. You internalize that. All of these things become lodged in the body and especially concentrated in the reproductive organs, and they show up as numbness or worse, dysfunction. Right? People develop conditions like difficult periods or PMS, wild raging menopause. They can have cysts and growths and endometriosis, PCOS, all of these things. Every single one of them is symptomatic of stuck sexual energy.
So glad that you say that because I really feel like everything internally, emotionally manifests physically somewhere in the body. And I think that if you have some sort of something going on with your reproductive organs, that's some sort of trauma or belief or whatever that you have to clear out. And I feel like if people can go in and really figure out what the root of that is, they can heal that within themselves and then physically heal that. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. And that's really the foundation of my work is that all of these things can be healed naturally, and they can actually be healed with this magnificent power of our sexual energy, that we can learn to use that energy to heal even our reproductive challenges, right? When that energy gets mobilized, when we learn how to consciously use it, when we're exchanging it with our partner in a high level gourmet sex relationship, we can actually be healed by this energy when we're finally learning how to use it at its highest capacity.
Mhm. So I was listening to Mantak Chia, and he was saying how you can circulate your sexual energy into different organs and places in your body. And I was having like a sore throat this one day, and I wanted to try it out. I'm like, let's see if this works. So I self-pleasured, and I brought the energy as high as I possibly could, and it almost reached here. And you know what? The next day, gone, gone. It had to be that, right? It had to be that.
Yes, we were just compiling some stories about this, and we have three solid examples of women and they're all in the throat. It's like a thing for women, the suppression of the female voice. I don't know, but all these women two of them had cysts and a goiter and a cyst on her throat. The other one was just feeling really stuck, like hard to express herself. And so they practiced that, moving the sexual energy into the throat. Both of the physical conditions from two different women gone. Like they went back to their doctors and they're like, oh, you don't have this thing anymore. And they're like, yeah, I've been deep throating a lot. Kim told me that deep throating is the medicine that I need. And then the other one, same thing, like her voice just blossomed open. So this is the reality. This is our own sexual medicine that we all have available to us. And it can be that easy of what you described. And it's interesting that you said like you could even feel you came up against that blockage, right? You said you were like feeling it get there and kind of like getting stuck. And yet still it had an impact what you did, but you could feel the blockage as you were in visualizing it and seeing it and feeling it in yourself.
Yes, I think that would be a great way for people that have different blockages around their body. So I do kind of like a head to toe scan sometimes, and I see where I feel heavy. I mean, if
Yeah.
people are at home, do the head to toe scan and then see if you can circulate that energy to that blockage and see what happens. probably magical.
Totally. Yeah, self medicine, heal thyself.
Yes, I
And
love
everyone has, it's the free medicine. Everyone has access to it. The
it.
only thing that makes it not free or not accessible is if somebody's so loaded down with blockages or their own beliefs that are negative around their sexuality. And then it could be harder to access that energy or for it to flow freely, right? And so the more that they practice, I have so many practices even for free in my offerings and in my online programs. But it's all about, okay, great. So how do we access this energy? And this is what I mean by the Anami guarantee. We all have it. We all have it in our bodies. The difference is the varying degrees of suppression, right? And so the biggest work often is removing the layers of suppression. Technique is easy, right? Once you removed whatever's holding that down, then the energy is there to play with. And yeah, some technique, some direction is helpful, but a huge focus is removing the weight of whatever that is within any person or couple.
Right, right, exactly. Do you feel like certain toys numb the vagina, like vibrators? What do you think about vibrators?
Well, I wouldn't say so much that the vibrator numbs the vagina, but numbs the clitoris. So the clitoris is so sensitive that by using a machine on it, yes, it will quickly then adapt to that level of intense stimulation. And then trying to use a tongue or a lowly finger will just be like, that's not really working. So I actually don't recommend them for the clitoris. Using a vibrator in the vagina, I don't like suggest these things as long-term solutions, but it wouldn't have a detrimental effect. It might help wake up some tissue, although I would more strongly recommend hands. Your own hands and your own tissue creates more neural pathways, more feedback than using a machine, right? So I don't think it's as detrimental in the vagina, but I wouldn't be something I ever recommend, actually.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. Let's talk about sex and manifestation because I know that I have manifested a lot of things in my life through sexual energy because it's a beautiful energy. Can you teach a little bit about that with self-pleasure and also with a partner? Because with a partner and you guys, if you're doing, and you're orgasming at the same time with the same belief, it's like boom. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I came up with a sequence a number of years ago called meditate, masturbate, create. And you could apply that to a couple with meditate, make love, create. And my suggestion, and this was actually on the heels of a big breakup that I had, and I was feeling really stuck and really like stagnant, having a hard time processing it. And I'm like, okay, well, take my own medicine. If I commit to a daily practice of this, but kind of elevate it, up level it, what could that look like? And so I sat down to meditate. I always have a morning meditation practice I have for 30 years, but I would do it again before I did this sequence. So I'd meditate for anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. For those who don't have a practice, I can offer a really simple suggestion. I use a mantra. It's a Sanskrit word called Hu, H-U. This is an ancient name for God, energy, spirit, the universe. It's found in writings all over the world. Rumi talks about it in his poetry. It's found in different African cultures and Celtic work. It sounds like you. So I suggest chanting that out loud, or again, using your own practice, 5 to 20 minutes, and then self-pleasuring and or making love with your partner. However, the catch is to breathe, right? Most people, as they're sexually stimulating themselves or engage with their partner, they hold the breath, they breathe really shallow, they tighten up the body, and all of those things curtail the flow of energy. So if you're breathing deeply, and I'd say aim for a 4 count inhale and a 4 count exhale, breathe deeply, make sure that your body is loose and relaxed and that you're not clenching your buttocks or your legs. People often do that as they get close to orgasm. Loosen up. And then honestly, it doesn't matter whether you go over the edge into orgasm or not. You want to get as high as you can into, I'd say, the 7 to 10 zone, where you're then able to harvest. And then every time you're breathing deeply, you're recirculating that energy in your body. So you could spend, I'd say minimum 20 minutes, but even up to 45 or longer, making love or self-pleasuring, and then go do something. So go do something that is creative, and let's expand the definition of creativity. So yes, it could be painting or writing, but it could also be gardening or playing with your children, or working on renovating your house, or even cleaning your house. It's just you're channeling that energy. You're training yourself to know that when I do this and I harvest this energy, now I'm going to go and do something with it. Right. And just you breathing that energy throughout your body through deep breaths, that energy knows where it needs to go. So yes, we can direct it towards a throat or a sore knee or whatever, but just deep breathing is going to take it away where it's concentrated at the genitals and usually just shot out, and bring it back so that we can nurture and heal and regenerate ourselves with it and use it creatively. And then we go out and do something. I mean, you could have other tools, like people often have vision boards, or, people sometimes in a couple that's really into this, they could say the things that they want to manifest at these peak places, and then, take steps. Then when you're done, go take a concrete step, even if it's something simple, like writing an email or writing a note about something that just keeps cementing and keeping that whole pathway open in the outer world as well.
Wow. I never thought about doing it like that. I always have thought about, how you visualize and you bring things into your world. So when I'm at the height, I'll just shoot something out in the ether and hopefully it returns. But channeling it into things that use creative energy, I bet just kind of really uplifts that like a lot.
Yeah, the woman actually that I spoke about, who she lost 70 pounds. And didn't change anything about her diet, exercise. It was all through this alchemical combustion process. She got rid of a cyst on her vagina and on her throat, and she reclaimed her singing voice. She'd had a songwriting career years earlier that she had kind of let fall by the wayside, and she totally resurrected that. And her creative outlet was, she had got a coloring book of mandalas. And after she did this meditate, masturbate, create practice, she would sit and just color in the mandalas. And so like you can be very flexible with what the creativity is, right? Like I wouldn't want people to feel like, well, I'm not a painter. They don't think of themselves as creative. Like I said, it can be anything, but you're training your whole system that we are channeling this energy out into the world, right? Even if it's cleaning your bathroom, right? It's a creative project, It's something that you're doing out in the world, and you're now tapping this energy to infuse into it.
Yes. What do you think the world would be like if everyone was harnessing their sexual energy? It would be a golden age, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And, then you have to ask yourself, so why is there such a massive effort to suppress this in everyone constantly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That question, exactly. I think all about control, the taboo and how people talk about it. Oh, and then the whore word, the hoe, the slut, all those words. It's like, those are the things I feel like we need to heal as a society, as a culture. Not only let the feminine rise a little bit higher because it's very masculine on this planet right now, but those words and what they hold and the energy that they hold. I mean, it's not good, not good.
I agree. And those words are used, especially for women, as control mechanisms, right? Like, um, I remember years ago, I had some kind of words with someone, right? And a guy that didn't even really know me, and he was like, "Yeah, but you're a slut." He just said it because he thinks he's so trained to think that this is a hurtful word for all women, that he can just throw it out there. You know what I mean? As an insult, not knowing anything about me sexually or my life, or didn't know anything about me. And it's just like, wow, it's such an epithet that men are trained, and women are trained to weaponize, right? And like I've done work to be fully immune to that word or those ideas. So it just made me laugh. And it was an interesting observation, like that's where but think of all the curse words, right? Cocksucker, motherfucker, cunt, asshole. He's a like they're all sexual words. So the word magic, right? Of words or spells, words or vibrations. It's like, what are we doing every time we curse the genitalia of ourselves or each other, right? What are we telling ourselves? What messaging are we putting out into the universe?
Man, you know what? You just sparked something in me. Listen, because I cuss like a sailor. I was a chef for like 6 years. So I worked in kitchens and it's literally every other word is a cuss word. And so I caught on, but I need to let that go because what am I telling my body? Why do I tell
Yes,
my genitals? I don't want to tell my genitals anything bad. No.
right?
What?
Right? And it's wild that those are the words that are the dirtiest words, right? The most offensive words. They're all like insulting and like putting this hostile energy towards genitalia.
Yes, I know. Crazy, crazy. Oh my God. Well, you know what? I love having conversations like this because just to be able to be open about the subject and just I love talking about it. My following loves talking about it because I want to step out of this taboo thingy and move into owning our sexual power that we all have within us because you can just create the most beautiful life if you can align with it. I really think. So, it's an amazing conversation, Kim. Where can people find you?
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I so appreciate your openness and eagerness to have these conversations and anytime. They can find me, kimanami.com is my website. I have all of my online programs. I have a whole sex and relationship school, courses for men, women, and couples on there. I have my Instagram account at Kimanami, and I have my own podcast called Orgasmic Enlightenment. And we actually interview a lot of what we call our well-fucked all-stars, people who've had these stories that I just shared, because I want people to know this is what's possible. So those are the main places that you can find me online.
Amazing. Yes, I love your podcast, Kim. I'm obsessed. I do listen to the stories. They're incredible. I'm like, I'm gonna be on your podcast one day with one of these stories, okay? Seriously. Okay, so at the end of my show, usually fans will send questions. So I will tell you to pick a number between 1 and 3, and I will pull that question.
Number 2.
Number 2. Okay. You see? 2. Okay. All right. This question is, when women get the ick, is there any way to re-spark the attraction?
There's potentially always a way. I mean, unless you've really just finished your time together, right? And you're moving in different directions for your own evolution. But let's say there was a potential or a desire to see if this could be rekindled. The main thing that happens with couples over time is they have a buildup of debris. They have a buildup of unspoken hurts, resentments, frustration, unresolved issues that sit. And think about feng shui, right? This is the whole idea of clearing clutter in a room, and the notion that if you don't clear that clutter, you're going to have really stale energy and blockages, and we're going to stop the flow in your life. Apply that to your relationship. It's identical. So one of the first things that I have people do is roll up their sleeves and start having what I call like block clearing conversations, where you sit down and your intention is, look, if there's something that I didn't share or speak to you about from this morning at breakfast or 5 years ago at that wedding we went to, and I haven't let it go, right? Like all that stuff, you bring it to the forefront. Like at that point, what have you got to lose? If you're already in ick country, right? Then what have you got to lose by practicing really radical honesty and open communication? And you do it as lovingly as you can, right? These could be really triggering conversations and ideas, but you will not change the dynamic unless you're willing to go into that territory. Nothing else is going to change. And so that's the most important thing you could do to then see when you have those conversations, you clear that space, you clean up that room. Then how do you feel? And for most couples, especially long-term couples, when they do that process, they get to this place where they can't
This
keep their
podcast is for
hands off
informational and
each
entertainment
other
purposes only. The views
because
expressed
the
are those of the
things
hosts and
that were
guests and don't necessarily
preventing
reflect
that
those of the producers
energy
or affiliates. We
flow
do not guarantee the
are
accuracy
all
of the
of the
content. This verified
walls
information and
and
seek professional advice when needed.
defenses
By
that
listening, you
they
agree not to hold
built
us liable
up,
for any
all
actions
of
taken
the
based on this
hurts
content. Thank
that
you for joining us on
haven't
this
been
journey. We
healed.
hope you enjoy the episode
That
ahead.
is what's
Love
built
unlimited, feel
like a
unlimited.
wall between them, a literal physical energetic wall that they can't penetrate. So one by one, brick by brick, you dismantle that wall and then you'll see what's left. And if you're really meant to be together, then that attraction returns. If say if you really are at the end of your cycle, then you'll have clarity about that too. But either way, if you go through that process, you'll get your answer.
Gotcha. Woo, so deep. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate you and your work so, so much. And I honor what you do and the word that you spread. And I'm just so, so blessed that we could have this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This was really enjoyable.
Awesome. All right, guys. Until another episode of Unlimited.